Crafting a responsible budget is about making hard choices. It's about ranking our priorities.
A budget is much more than a spreadsheet. It's really an expression of values. In its best form, it's an expression of values of the people of Los Angeles.
Welcome to the first day of this hearing of the Budget and Finance Committee as we consider the Mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. I'm Paul Krekorian, Chair of the committee, joined by...
Hello, I'm Saida Fagan, and welcome to the budget process with Paul Krekorian. Give us an overview of how it all works.
Well, you can imagine with a budget of over $10 billion, there's a lot of hands that are involved in creating this budget. This budget, for the first time in the city's history, has surpassed the $10 billion mark. The process starts with each department making a proposal to the mayor. And the mayor has to make some hard choices then, because each department will invariably want more than the city can afford as a whole. So the mayor has to make a decision about which requests from departments to grant and which not to grant.
So I would ask you to make those investments which will significantly increase our efficiency.
That goes into the mayor's proposed budget.
The mayor has proposed for fiscal year 1920 a $10.6 billion budget.
We're about to approve recommendations that we're going to put before the City Council of Los Angeles for $10 billion in expenditures. That's a monumental task that touches every aspect of the life of people in Los Angeles.
The proposed budget is then submitted to the City Council, and we then have to make decisions about whether or not that proposed budget matches what the Council's priorities are.
We've heard presentations and been able to ask questions of over 30 city departments and bureaus, so we've had a great opportunity to consider this budget at great length.
At the end of all that, the result is a recommendation that we make to the full City Council. And then we start the debate again in the full council. And the result of all of that forceful discussion is that we shape a budget that best serves the interests of all of the people of Los Angeles.
I know the public wants to get involved and will be able to have that opportunity.
The budget process in the Budget and Finance Committee and in Council is absolutely wide open to public participation.
80% of allocations for street homelessness in this budget are for enforcement.
Let's take a serious look at what this money is being used for.
I'm here to voice my support for the renewal of the LA Justice Fund, as the protection of our immigrant community should be a priority that is reflected through our city's budget.
We cannot continue to nickel and dime our ethics commission.
$34 million to fix up a building, which you never fixed up.
You will continue to see us here until we see the money.
I'm here to urge that this committee establish a $1 million fund for pilot projects tied to the new Office of Climate Emergency Mobilization.
Our communities can't wait, our planet can't wait.
In order for us to have a successful program, we need the funding.
The current proposed budget of $500,000 would cause severe underfunding.
I wanted to say that I understand that the work that you do here today is very hard, dealing with the competing requests for dollars.
I wanted to take this time to not only urge you to support the funding request for Right to Counsel, but to thank you for the time and consideration you have given all of the advocates.
There's plenty of opportunity for people to come down to the City Council chamber and offer their viewpoints and participate that way. And then people can always contact me directly at www.paulkrekorian.org.
And you definitely take that input very seriously. Let's talk a little bit about the mayor's proposed budget. And I know this year, as in other years, it prioritizes safety, including more support for police and fire departments. Now, we recently joined you for a test run of a new LAPD helicopter.
We still have helicopters that are vintage 2000, and that's just way too long to keep a police helicopter on the job.
Well, of course, public safety is the most important function of city government, and that value is reflected in our budget. If the police have good working helicopters with good communication system, this is a force multiplier. Same with the fire department. If we have up-to-date vehicles, if we have helicopters which are multi-use helicopters which can be used for water drops and also medical rescue, those are investments that we're making that have a direct return on investment in terms of the safety of the people.
Let's talk about the homeless issue. What about investments for the homeless?
It goes without saying that this is the issue that's paramount on everybody's mind right now. This budget includes $457 million of investments in permanent housing, temporary shelter, services, and facilities to help homeless Angelenos. This is the largest investment the city has ever made to address the homelessness crisis. The people of Los Angeles have invested by taxing themselves to help address this problem, and we're doing it. We're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in new housing, in bridge housing, in permanent supportive housing, in more domestic violence shelters, in many of the housing infrastructure that's necessary to address this problem.
Item 1, the only item on today's special agenda, is the continued consideration of the Budget and Finance Committee report relative to the Mayor's proposed 2019-20 budget for the city, related motions and resolutions.
At this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Krekorian to set the meeting up.
Good morning, members. Today is the day when we get to take up the end result, the work product of the Budget and Finance Committee that considered the Mayor's proposed budget over the course of 2 weeks, including 45 hours of hearings that included hearing from 40 city departments and bureaus and the receipt of more than 300 public comments.
As I listen to you, I realize how difficult a task this is and how important it is. Tell us about your decision making after you've heard everyone speak, all the budget hearings are over. What is it like to sit down with the other committee members and make those final decisions?
Well, the Budget and Finance Committee, in the years that I've chaired it, has really been blessed with members who are thoughtful, detail-oriented representatives of their constituencies. And so our debates have sometimes been robust, sometimes pointed, sometimes even heated, but the result of those debates and discussions has, I think, been a consensus around the priorities that really matter to the people of Los Angeles. That actually concludes our work, members, on the budget. So thank you all very much for incredibly smooth process. I think this may
That's
have
worth a round of applause.
May have broken our time record. Did this break our time record? So it's especially important to put this budget, as easy as this seemed, into a larger context, Mr. President, because a few of us that I see around were here at a time when the city was literally teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. When I took office in the council in 2010, we were facing some of the darkest financial times since the Great Depression. And in fact, former Mayor Reardon wrote an editorial for the Wall Street Journal saying that it was inevitable that the city would declare bankruptcy, and they might as well just go ahead and do it and get it over with. And we didn't take that advice. We went about the methodical, difficult effort at chipping away at that enormous budget deficit that the city was facing at that time, $1 billion projected budget deficit. We went from that point to a point where we now have not only a balanced budget, but we've eliminated almost the entire structural deficit. This budget, for the first time in the city's history, has surpassed the $10 billion mark. And notably, the reserve fund in this year's budget has reached $409 million. We have the strongest reserves that the city has ever had in its history.
When this process first began under his leadership, Mayor Reardon and other individuals within this city indicated that this city was headed towards bankruptcy. And they may very well have been correct. If it wasn't for your leadership, if it wasn't for your creativity, If it wasn't for your work ethic, they could have been right. But thank God they were wrong. Let's give our Budget and Finance Chair the round of applause that he deserves.
Is there anything we haven't discussed today that we really need to know?
Well, I think I'm glad that you're doing this, because I think people should understand the process that goes into how we spend their tax money. People should be passionate about the budget. This has been great work. And with that, Mr. President, I think our work is done here.
Let's have another round of applause.
It's obvious that you have a real passion for making all of this work.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that, because I didn't ask to be the budget chair. This was an assignment that was given to me, and it wasn't necessarily at the beginning the job that I most wanted to do in the council, because we were looking at pretty daunting budget times at the time. But Council President Wesson had confidence in my ability to do that. And over those years, I've come to realize that this is the most important work that we have, because everything that we do as a city is touched by our budget. It's been a real honor to be able to do this work. Slight oversight, Mr. President. We haven't yet voted on the budget. We voted.
And who reminded us of that? Sharon, maybe?
We voted on all the motions, but now, as amended, we need to vote on the Budget and Finance Committee's recommendations as amended.
Well, let's do that, okay? Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate.
13 ayes.
Now, just to make sure I'm sure, is there anything else
We're done.
that we have forgotten? All right, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.